Is WoW too easy? Why WoW is too easy now, and huge class changes now live, the weekly reset. Funny enough, we just went into the article about how the 6th boss in Liberation of Undermine Heroic right now is, where is it? The hardest boss ever? Yeah, hardest 6th boss ever. Looking at the boss kills. So, yes, maybe Galliwix is an easy final boss, but certainly for Mythic rating at least, the bosses leading up to him have been quite difficult. But let's see if WoW is currently too easy from Taliesin and Evitel.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here. Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdom Show. In a week where Season 2 of The War Within is in full swing. The race to World First is over, and there's one question on everyone's lips. How many market research do I need to get the cool-ass Neo coat so I can be Neo, though?
Yeah.
And what class makes the best Neo? Like a monk, obviously, but not a Brewmaster monk, though, because the whole beer keg thing is way too goofy for Neo. Neo isn't goofy, he's
You'd have to go Blood Elf without the pointed ears. That's the best way to do it.
edgy. There's
Or
none
the least
more
pointed
edgy.
ears.
So actually, obviously, your Neo has to be a demon hunter. But also, you need 8,400
Right title.
market research. Enjoy the Dark Fuse farm spot by the big submarine fam. And
Damn it, I love Blurpson.
of course, there's the other question on everyone's lips. Is World of Warcraft too easy now? And honestly, I think in the wake of the Liberation of Undermine race and Season 2, this is a fair question to ask that we are going to be talking about in depth. But first,
This is the never-ending conundrum, right, for WoW players. Last season was too hard for Mythic Plus. This season becoming too easy for Mythic Plus. It's hard for them to balance it out. I don't know, but would I rather lean this season than last season? Hell yeah. Last season just was impenetrable. It was just created toxicity. It was not fun. The difficulty level and the scalability of that difficulty, the way it would just quickly ramp up, was not fun either. Created a barrier to entry for Mythic Plus for a lot of players. So I prefer this season over last season. Now, whether or not the race to World First, here's the thing. A lot of players are still progressing on Mythic rating. So if you're going to talk about this raid being too easy, okay, too easy for the top 0.01% of players? Who gives a shit? That's like, that's such a small minority of players that think right now this game's too easy. I think most people are just enjoying this season much more than last season because it's easier. So I would not say their opinion really matters in this if you're comparing the race to World First to your average player.
first, let's have a rundown of all the week's other news with Evitel.
It's time for Evie's News Rundown. Let's run down. Huge class changes. Huge trinket tuning. As
Yeah,
usual,
big trinket
now that
changes.
the race to World First is over, Blizzard can finally get about fixing all the borked balancing issues that 11.1 launched with, and there are some big winners and losers in this round of tuning, like Mistweavers. Your time has come. Your bell has tolled. Blizz has noticed all that damage you've been doing, and you never want to be noticed by Blizz when you're in a
Right.
good place. So you get hit by the Nerf bat. Yeah, we have a graphic. And just your damage, not healing. Discipline priests, big healing nerfs through atonement. Holy priests,
Yeah, Discipline, we're doing the best. So, yeah, we just looked at those charts. That's going to hurt them.
you've been buffed so
Just a
much
little
that
bit.
you might actually do some healing now. But you still have to play Holy. Sorry. Balance druids get a damage buff. Elemental shaman get like a literal 500% damage buff to Primordial Wave,
That's
which
insane.
is a bit like putting a bow tie on a poop before you flush it, but it's nice that they tried, you know? Augmentation got a small buff to its direct damage, which is like a party of 20 leaving a $5 tip after their meal. And Vengeance Demon Hunter, the undisputed, more meta than meta Mythic Plus pick right now.
Yeah.
Well, you've had it too easy for too long now, fam. Be prepared for a 30% nerf to Demon Spike's parry chance with deflecting spikes. Whoa there, Blizz. Holy shit, you went too far this time.
Yeah, I feel like Vengeance Demon Hunter every single season has its time in the light. It's like it's always going to be one of the best tanks for Mythic Plus. Just the speed alone that they can run with and pull shit with, that already is a buff to their shit. Add more damage on top of that, and yeah, of course they're going to be the number one tank. But I feel like if we looked at overall which tank has had the most time being number one for Mythic Plus, I would say it has to be Vengeance Demon Hunter. If you only include the time that they've been in the game, of course. But yeah, they're always. It feels like they're always at the top. Them, and then you got your what's it called? You got Paladins as well. tanking, big dick tanking Mythic Plus. Blood DKs, we always got it tough. We always got it tough.
Also, buffs across the board for pretty much every direct damage trinket in Season 2, with some of the underperforming ones buffed by up to 20%.
Yeah.
This probably isn't going to change any metas at the top end. It's just the way of WoW that a good stat increase trinket is almost always going to outperform something that does like an explosion of fire damage. So
True.
Eye of Kazan can rest easy in its comfy bed in the S tier penthouse for now, but it's certainly going to help a lot of players who are making do with their not quite biz trinks feel a bit better about their lot. As always, for a more detailed breakdown of everything you need to know about these changes and how they're going to totally dick up your raid night, we're linking the relevant Wowhead articles below for you to peruse at your leisure. The Heavenly Regalia pack is here. Both of these variants were data mined a while ago now, and we've been playing the very fun game of will this awesome, unique, but not very thematically war within set be a trading post or shop item? We've been kind of overloaded with shop items recently with one
surprise, it's a shop item. Yep.
new bundle every 1 or 2 weeks, so obviously it's a shop item.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, whatever. I think there is maybe a conversation to be had about the relentlessness of shop releases in 2025 for sure, especially with player housing on the horizon, but this is my breezy...
Here's the thing. I mean, look, Blizzard's part of Microsoft. They got to have a business plan together about how, World of Warcraft is going to generate revenue. So maybe they have like this goal of every month releasing some kind of armor set on the WoW store. Okay, whatever. It doesn't bother me as long as they're giving Blizzard the dev power they need to pump out content. Personally, I'm not going to get all upset about shit being on the WoW store because I don't care. I'm not going to buy it anyways. I don't really shop on the WoW store. So people want to go out there and buy that stuff. And by the way, like somebody wears this set in game, everybody knows where it came from, so it's not a big deal. It doesn't have the same cachet as somebody who's rocking Mythic tier set from the raid. So whatever happens, I don't give a shit with the WoW shop as long as they keep pumping out content, which I feel like they have been. So if Microsoft supports Blizzard with dev power to pump out content at a fast rate, I don't care what they require as from the Blizzard store.
Rundown segment and not Tally's boring discussing things segment.
Yeah,
So
they're
if you
good looking
don't mind,
sets.
I'm just going to point out something that I know a lot of you may have missed. You get both the Radiant, sun-themed, and Shining, moon-centric sets, but you also have both sun and moon-style shoulders in both silver and golden colorways, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is
Why not
cool.
one on each shoulder? Good news for everyone who was worried they would have to spend precious tendies on these. Bad news for anyone who doesn't have gold and needs to spend the real-life dollary dues. Don't forget that there's probably still time to take part in the Trial of Style, which is probably on now as you watch this video, which this time out has new rewards to buy, mostly in cool rugged sepia, like the awesome Prowler's headgear and shoulder cape, as well as all those new war skirts that everyone likes. Added bonus, you can also hang around after the event for a chance of catching the dialogue between the event hosts and mysterious ethereal Shadreen,
Oh,
who
shit.
also hangs out in an unreachable spot in Telogris Rift.
What is
this
that?
dialogue has always been in Trial of Style since its introduction, but most people don't know it's there, and feels like it might be getting pretty relevant is all. Just saying, maybe check it out, that's all. Huge exploit punishment. Blizz has
Yeah, this
stripped
was great.
the Tempered Hero achievement.
This was great. I wish Blizzard would do something like this. I'm going to let her say it. I'm not going to take away her thunder, but NetEase fucking laid the hammer down on these people.
Gained from achieving a 3K Mythic Plus rating from nearly 9,000 players for cheating. In China. It's a Chinese thing. Sorry, I probably should have led with that and published the names of all...
This is funny. This is the part I was talking about. Imagine your name gets published as a freaking cheater. Oh my god. I just don't understand what the asterisks are for in some of these names. What is this like? Is this Ming Kok Z or something? Is that what this is? I'm wondering if these are like names that shouldn't be shown. I have no idea. But the funny big head Ethan yeah, so I mean, I would love to see people's names posted on this shit. It's just funny. They become famous for being a cheater.
8,992 players in the blue post, which is kind of baller or kind of scary. Most importantly, it appears that Chinese players can have names made up of multiple words. Snow Knight, Wrong
Yeah, I
Luck,
know.
The Last Dragon, Drive Away Sorrow. Look, straight up, I want to be able to call myself Drive Away Sorrow, and now we have player housing. This is the WoW change I
Yeah,
will
this is weird. I don't understand how they're allowed to have names like this. Blizzard just creates shit for them that's different.
be fighting for above everything else.
I know, two named
apart
characters
from
is
hair
interesting.
showing under hats, obviously. So these guys,
I'd just be Lord Samiccus, you know? I'd just be what people call me in real life. It's what people refer to me as all the time, so I just put it in game that way.
don't trust these guys, but they do have cool names. As the Chinese GMs say when they are banning 9,000 people, I wish you a
The asterisks are probably Chinese characters. Actually, that makes more sense than my my cock reference. You're probably right.
happy game.
And so, to our main story today, how World of Warcraft is too easy now and basically only for children and girls. The subject of difficulty in WoW has always been a hot topic from day one. Don't forget that at launch, the game was criticised by players of other MMOs for being the scrub, normie version of the genre, by introducing such snowflake millennial crybaby participation trophy cheat code nonsense as not losing all of your gear when you died. And within the
true.
game, there has always been a divide, real or imagined, between the more hardcore player base and what are usually termed casuals. Although, of course,
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about hardcore versus casuals. You're talking about 1% versus 99%. That's really how it balances out. Most people are playing the game in what hardcore players would consider to be a casual way. Even if you're putting like 8 hours a day into the game, if you're not running plus 21 keys every single day and mythic progging on raid as soon as it opens, the second it opens, then you're probably considered to be a casual by the hardcore players. So this is not a hardcore versus casuals. This is a 1% versus the the rest of the player base kind of issue.
in this case, casual
And unfortunately, the 1% have a very loud voice because they are no-lifing the game. So they're on the forums as well. They're giving feedback more than the rest of us. So that's why the game sometimes leans that way.
And always use
Mini.
another
Oh my God,
death
40 months? Have I even been streaming for 40 months? Holy crap. Resub in tier 1. Thank you, Mini. Oh man, I think that's one of my longest running subs. I appreciate that, man. Death Knight of our Scourge.
mean
OG.
anything up to someone who has literally played tens of thousands of hours of the game, like 30 hours a week for the past 20 years, but just doesn't care about raiding. Whether it be by the introduction of flying or group finder or queuing instances or LFR, welfare epics, remember the people that were upset about that? The game's gradual streamlining and polish and increased user friendliness over the years has often been seen as something that has robbed WoW of its magic to a certain degree, and to a certain degree, that's probably true. I think that perceived divide has been highlighted again this week, though, and maybe over the last couple of expansions, if we're honest, in the way that most of us agree the game has become noticeably easier of late. With the Race to World First and the killing of mythic Chrome King Gallywix by Liquid, a boss that was seen as very disappointing to much of the community in how quick and easy it was, to the extent that it appears to have sparked genuine anger in parts of the high-level community.
Look, as I said, though, earlier before the video even started, Gallywix is easy, but the bosses leading him up to him are not. They're not. So overall, I would say the raid difficulty is, it's on par with what we've typically seen if you're considering the raid in total and how it's progressing through and how people are progressing through it. The thing, again, about Gallywix being overly easy in mythic rating, again, that's not even a 1%, that's like a 0.01% issue for people right now. Most guilds have not even tried or pulled mythic Gallywix yet, so that's another whole thing. Only 30 guilds have even killed the 6th boss in the raid right now. So again, progression on mythic King Gallywix is just a 0.01%er thing.
Embarrassing, complete calamity. I'm literally furious with what they did during that raid. Ultimately, embarrassing is the word I will go with. Absolutely embarrassing for Blizzard.
So, what went wrong?
Does this guy still like the game? I mean, do you remember when he got mad that he didn't get like a key to the game because he claimed that he was never going to play it again, and then surprise Blizzard didn't give him like a key to the next expansion? Because he said he wasn't going to play, and then he got upset by that. Boo-hoo, preach farms negativity on WoW. That's what it feels like.
Absolutely embarrassing for Blizzard.
So, what went wrong? And how is this representative of a broader trend? Well, basically, Gallywix was too easy in the race to world first. Liquid took him down in 100 pulls. Echo in less than
Easy
60
money, yeah.
pulls for world second. And that is seen as underwhelming at best and...
Embarrassing. They did not deliver. This is possibly one of the worst designed raids of all time. It should never played out this way. There is no justifiable reason.
at worst.
Why? Why is it the worst designed raid? Because fucking the race to world first finished a bit too quickly? Because I just said it. 30. I'm talking about worldwide, or sorry, at least in the U.S. 30 guilds. 30 guilds, guys. 30 freaking guilds have killed that the sixth boss. That means they haven't even pulled Gallywix yet, and the raid is an embarrassment. How's that make any sense? I don't know.
If you follow the race to world first, then it's disappointing to see the final boss of a shiny new raid get deleted so quickly. Especially when he's a character so lore important as Gallywix, and especially because there was no real climax to the fight itself. Whereas final raid bosses will often have a hectic final phase with new things to deal with, Gally just kind of cycled through the same mechanics he'd been using all fight until he died, which doesn't make it feel like an event. You want a bit of excitement.
Yeah.
You want at least two teams head to head pushing each other every inch of the way, and you...
That's valid criticism. The final phase could have been something more exciting. All the final phases is a combination of the first two phases. So yeah, I understand on that side of things that, okay, could have been more exciting. But to say that the raid is the worst designed raid ever, oh my god, he's taking it a bit far.
need a final boss worthy of fulfilling that promise. I totally agree with this sentiment, by the way. I was personally disappointed to see Gallywix die so quickly, but more importantly, so undramatically and unclimactically. That's a shame. It's a shame for me as a viewer, and it's a shame for me as someone who wants the game to do well, because a lot of people who don't play WoW right now and might be tempted back, the thing they now know about the current expansion is that people are disappointed in the new raid.
What is happening here? It's ridiculous. That's so stupid. It's so stupid. That's nonsense. That's so ridiculous.
I want to make it clear here, I'm not showing these clips to criticize Preach for his opinion, or to prove him wrong, or even disagree with him, just to
What is this? Styx is literal trash. One-Armed Bandit is visual clutter shit. One-Armed Bandit visually does have some issues. I don't disagree with that. It's hard to see sometimes what the hell's going on in that fight. Gallywix was underwhelming. It's not a good raid overall. I see what you're saying. There are some issues with some of the bosses. Yeah, I do like the fact that they did try different things, like the whole ball rolling mechanic and all that stuff. There's some interesting mechanics in the raid, but you got the other side of it where, like, Sanctum of Domination, Anduin was, or not, it's not Sanctum of Domination, sorry, it was, what was the final raid in Shadowlands called? Fucking did it so many times, I can't believe it. Do you remember how hard Anduin was? Oh my, Anduin was harder than the Jailer was. Anduin was a shit show of a boss. And that thing had a crazy amount of mechanics, but that didn't make the raid fun. That was overly difficult. So many guilds were just stuck on that thing, including us. We got stuck. I think we pulled Anduin almost 200 times before we killed him. So, and he was the third to last boss. To say that the raid overall isn't fun, I can't say that because I've enjoyed doing the raid. But there are issues in the raid. Yes, I don't disagree with that.
Straight the feeling in the community. I will not hear a bad word said about Preach, okay? Don't even think about it. It's not even that the whole raid was too easy either. It is mostly just the Gallywix fight.
Yeah,
to put it
that's
in context, the last time a raid's final boss took as few pulls to kill as Gallywix was the Emerald Nightmare, the very underwhelming first raid of Legion. 8.5 years ago. There have been 21 raids in the last 11 years.
Hold on, where is, Vault of the Incarnates? What are we looking at here? Avarice, Shadow, okay, Vault of the Incarnates is what Sepulchre of the first ones is what I'm thinking of. Last boss. Who was Anduin? Right here? Is Anduin here? 200, what is this? 358 pulls. I remember just Anduin and what was the big spider-looking boss with the giant balls that we had to constantly deal with. That one had to get nerfed into the ground before people could get. But look at this. Look at these mid-tier bosses on Sepulchre. Unbelievably hard. Yeah, Sakareth was only 114 pulls. People didn't love that raid either. Yeah, that's true.
Only Liberation of Undermine and 3 others had a final boss that was killed.
I didn't like Sakhareth's cinematic. I thought that whole thing was fucking bullshit. We didn't even... Sakhareth, died, and then what happened? He looked into the stars and nothing came of it?
Less pulls than the boss before it. It's a shame that's how it turned out this time, and it's a little bit annoying that Undermine, which is such a great zone and patch and fun and unique raid experience, might be remembered in this disappointing way, because it deserves better. Now, of course, what Liquid and Echo's experience is like when they kill these bosses is nothing like what basically any other player's experience will be. The second the race is over, we get big rounds of class tuning and also boss tuning, which are mostly nerfs of one kind or another. And it's funny to see how those world first streams do filter into player consciousness. My guild only just killed Heroic Mugsy last night, and I think there was a genuine surprise among many of our players when Gallywix didn't basically just fall over after a few pulls, because
it's true.
He is an easy boss. After all, the community knows he is an easy boss. And he absolutely flattened us for half an hour before raid night was finished.
It happened on stream. You guys remember we were doing Gallywix even on normal? And the entirety of the stream chat was like, "Oh my god, you guys didn't one shot. Oh my god, you guys didn't one shot Gallywix." I was like, well, we got to learn the fight first off. And then once we got it down, a couple pulls in, we did end up killing him. But he's right. The sentiment in the community is because the race to world first ended so quickly on Gallywix that everybody should just find the fight to be easy. And overall, I don't disagree. As a final boss, he is pretty easy. But it filters into our consciousness that, it's like a shame to even wipe one time on him.
And it was quite funny, but it is definitely true that
we wiped more times on Mugsy than we did on Gallywix too, DJ. I think most people will.
This raid and boss is only one reason that the game feels easier right now. Because I don't think I'm being controversial when I say it definitely does. Immortalis, Argent Dawn, EU are flying through this raid. You probably noticed we didn't have a race to world first heroic for guilds with names a bit like Immortalis segment at the beginning of this episode. And the reason for that is because the race is pretty much over. Bit like Immortalis were 5% off killing Galley last night as we made our first pull. And okay, so they didn't actually kill him, and technically we are currently in a head-to-head race for first place, which is actually very exciting. But bear in mind, this segment, this race that we completely made up because we thought it was funny, used to take around 5 or 6 weeks at least to finish. This isn't getting past week 3. Mythic Plus is a lot easier in Season 2 than it was in Season 1. It feels a lot more like those Dragonflight seasons, which themselves were noticeably easier than what came before.
But that's what the player base wants. That's what I wanted. I wanted an easier season. I thought last season of Mythic Plus was just overly difficult and complicated for no reason. I disagree that it's easier. One-Arm Bandit Heroic is really hard to do. Yes, this is true. And we just talked about it. One-Arm Bandit is going down as the hardest 6 boss in raiding history. So leading up to Gallywix, I think Gallywix is the main issue. People just wanted Gallywix to be more difficult or at least more interesting of a fight, and it's just not. Gallywix is a very easy final boss when compared to other final bosses. The bosses leading up to Gallywix, that's not the same story for them. They're just as difficult. Wasn't it also the 4th hardest boss in history? Yes. We did have the 4th hardest boss in this raid as well. So look, it's not the other bosses. It's Gallywix. That's the main issue that people are having with this whole thing. And by the way, because of seasonality in WoW right now, things do have to be a bit easier. Because it used to be that Blizzard would drop raids, like going back to Wrath of the Lich King, where the raid would last the entire expansion. That's okay, right? And people who wanted to progress up to the final raid, like if you wanted to do ICC, you couldn't just jump in there like you do now. There wasn't catch-up mechanics. You just had to kind of get in, do your regular dungeons, do your heroic dungeons, then get into the first raid, then do the second raid. You had to progress all the way up to ICC. So that was an expansion, or raids that were meant to last basically the entire expansion. Now with seasonality, you can't make a raid last, or a difficulty last that long. It has to be only a season. You basically got a couple months to make sure that people clear the raid if they are attempting it at a reasonable pace. Otherwise, the raid's going to be way too hard, and nobody's going to go back and do it when the new season opens. So there's that whole thing. Seasonality has created easier content.
4. And to be clear, I don't even know if the content is actually easier or if it's just been made easier by how much more friendly to players the game is now. Warbands have been huge. It's never been easier to level up and gear and ult, but also a main. Delves giving heroic loot is huge.
Delves is a big
The
difference
Vault
too.
giving tier pieces on every track is huge. The Catalyst is huge. I have not had a single piece of gear drop for me in the Liberation of Undermine guild runs, but I have 4 set from 1 piece of tier I got in my vault, and
Catalyst changes things too, because it used to be you could be 8 weeks, 2 months into the season, and you won't have your 4-piece yet. That used to be very possible. Now it's impossible for that to happen. You will get 4 charges of your Catalyst before that happens, and you will get a 4-piece set. And 4-piece set is going to make everybody infinitely more powerful. So that certainly the way we get gear has affected how we progress in the game.
3 Catalyst charges that I've received this season. You might only have 2, but that's because you haven't done Keystone Master. It's very useful. I have never had 4 set in week 3 of a raid before. I usually get it just in time to kill the final boss, which I guess I did this season again, actually. But like I say, that usually takes at least twice as long. Crafting is huge. I was able to craft myself a top-level staff in week 2 because I'd run some +7 keys for the top-level crests. And this much faster pace of gearing undoubtedly is the main driver in how much easier the game is feeling at the moment, I think, even if it isn't the only reason. But here's an important question. Is that bad?
No.
Or is that actually really good, actually? Actually, that's really good, actually.
Yeah, it is
so
good.
Here's the thing. We might be disappointed about how quickly Galliwix died, but something I think is absolutely true, the player base in general prefers the game when it's easier. The final boss may have been underwhelming to watch, but the raid itself lasted about the amount of time players like it to last.
You'll never see statistics show the opposite of what he's saying. When a Mythic Plus season is harder, participation drops off a cliff. That is a direct correlation. When the season is easier, more people participate in it. And that's just because most people are not looking for the most difficult high-end content. They just want to get some gear. That's it. Most of your regular Andys out there, most of your Gregs from accounting out there just want to get some gear. That's about it. So again, if the 0.01%ers are upset that they're playing the game 25 hours a day and now they're out of content 2 weeks into the season, well, what the fuck? The game's not meant to be played that way. So, I mean, their complaints, yes, they're valid for them, but they're not valid for the majority of the player base. I prefer an easier season. I prefer easier content. Now, I do like a little bit of a challenge, which I can get. If I push keys higher in Mythic Plus, push into Mythic rating, okay, that's fine. That content's there if I want it. But for the most part, the average content, your heroic level raids and your heroic tier gear and all that shit can be gotten just by doing some decent mid-level content. Right? Sam pushing keys, LOL. I know. But if I want it, it's there. It's there. Most people want to have fun playing the game. Yeah, I know. Imagine that. And as I said, just look at participation numbers versus difficulty. Season 1 of The War Within, one of the lowest seasons of Mythic Plus participation in a long time. Dragonflight Season 3, one of the highest rates of participation. It's directly correlated. That's it. More people are going to play the content if it's a little bit easier and more accessible.
It's generally seen as bad when the Race to World First goes into a 3rd week. If it had in this case, Echo literally had nowhere to stay because they only booked their accommodation in Germany for a fortnight. They might have been surprised by how fast the single boss Galliwix died, but the overall length of the race
the rest
was
of it
objectively
was
almost
hard.
Exactly what they had planned for. Season 3 in Dragonflight is generally considered to be the best Mythic Plus season of all time.
It was.
I don't disagree with that. Everyone loved that season, but it was also probably the easiest season in Mythic Plus history.
It was.
Too. The only season I ever got 3k rating with. I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't hear anyone saying there should be less gear in the vault. I don't hear anyone complaining that warbands make gear and rep and currencies too easy to share. I know.
No, the entire community cried for warbands for years. For years. One of the biggest gripes, Legion was a good expansion, but one of the things that pissed people off more than anything about Legion was something like warbands didn't exist, where if they created an alt, they would literally have to do the whole AP grind all over again. That was a problem. Now, that is considered difficult, right? That's a difficult thing to deal with. But people didn't want that difficulty. They just wanted more accessibility. They just wanted to be able to jump from character to character and play the game and do all the content, get all the gear. That's why that was the one problem with Legion. I'm sure there were other ones, but that was one of the biggest ones I remember people complaining about. Now we have warbands. Blizzard literally gave people what they wanted. And then I guess the 0.1 percenters are going to complain that it's too easy now.
That I'm not alone in thinking that gameplay and
I got 4K in Dragonflight. Yeah, a lot of people got really high.
The best spot it has been
What's up, Kasumi?
in the modern age. So from Warlords onwards, honestly, I think maybe it's in the best spot ever. And you might disagree with that, but the point is,
No, I agree.
It is not a controversial thing to say. People like getting their gear quicker. And I think it still feels good overall because players are still having to work for their gear. They are still having to raid. They are still having to run dungeons, but there's way more options with the vault and delves and crafting too. And that's important. People aren't getting something for nothing. They just have way more opportunities per week to work and earn their gear.
Yes,
and I think
more opportunities and more ways to do it. Blizzard didn't think of this on their own. This is literally based on community feedback. This is what people wanted, and I think it was a valid ask. This makes the game better if you have more ways to get your gear and it's easier to get. Because you have more ways to do it, it's more accessible. You got 15 minutes to play, go run a delve. You got 40 minutes to play, go do a Mythic Plus. You got hours to play, go jump into a raid. Like there are some you never raid, but you want to see the story, go do story mode of the raid. There are so many ways now to play the game and get the gear, and that's what people asked for.
that's great. Yay for lots of ways to get gear. Yay for the vault. Yay for the
Yeah, we're gonna
catalyst.
do normal.
Yay for warbands. Holy shit. Yay for me having tier sets sooner than ever. Yay for me having Keystone Hero and my portals sooner than ever. Yay for the game respecting our time more than ever.
Yeah.
This is all very, very good. But here's the thing. It's actually also bad, actually. Actually, it's bad, actually. So I love that more of the game is now open to me as a player, a pretty bad player, because the game is giving me more opportunities to get the gear I need to push into that higher content.
Yeah.
But there are downsides to that too. For me, personally, heroic raiding is not a fun difficulty level to take part in anymore. Ever since I've been a member, my guild has seen heroic raid as our main content and ahead of the curve as our main objective.
That's literally the stream. This stream was built on getting ahead of the curve via just pug raiding on Twitch, like just pulling people from chat and doing the pug raid and getting AOTC. So I totally relate to this.
And that's great when it takes us a couple of months to complete. That's great when nearly every boss or two is at least a raid night by itself. But currently, I find raid very unsatisfying. I honestly can't tell you what most of the main mechanics of any boss before the conveyor belt.
He's not wrong, like about that, because if you guys remember, like we used to joke like a race to world last. You guys remember when we were doing Sepulchre of the first ones? We got AOTC like only I think it was a couple weeks before the season ended. Like because getting past Anduin took us so long. So yeah, like it used to be I could drag out the content of AOTC for the entire season. But here's the thing. Now we get AOTC a little bit quicker. This is true. We usually get AOTC now about halfway through the season, if not a little bit sooner. But what that allows us to do now is there's so much other content to do. Like you guys remember last season, okay, we got AOTC, but what did I start doing? We went and got the Nightmare Mount. That was fun content. Obviously, Zekvir, the killing Zekvir was freaking fun content to do on stream. All the different hard mode stuff. What did I go out and do? Mount hunting, doing that kind of stuff. We went and got the Hive Mind mount too. Like we just ran around and did other things. And that's the cool thing about WoW right now is there are a lot of other things to do. They keep adding more challenge modes into the game. Next season, we're getting Dastardly Duos. Right, that's a new thing that they're giving us to be able to do after we complete raid. You can go run around and try to get a higher score in that whole thing. There's just a lot more content to do now, so it's okay if raid's a little bit easier. Yeah, Hive Mind. Yeah, AOTC before you back then. What the fuck? Yeah. Yeah, but you never did Mythic Plus, so you're still massively undergeared. I mean, I wasn't massively undergeared. I had literally all heroic, maxed out heroic gear. I just didn't have any Mythic level gear, really. I had 2 pieces because, I didn't push keys that high. And that's always something you could do, right? Now there's the 3K IO mount reward for this season. So yeah, if you finish out raid a little bit quicker, start pushing Mythic keys. So it's not that there's a lack of things to do, because raid is easier. It's actually the opposite. Raid is easier, but there's a lot more things to do. So I feel like you can occupy your time with other stuff now.
Guy even are in Undermine because we 1 or 2 shot everything.
Right,
And
Cadence.
that's not really fun, actually. We are going to have Curve next week, probably, the week after at the latest. And then my favorite thing about WoW, progressing raid content with some of my favorite people on Earth, is over. And we won't get that again as a friendship group until next raid. And it feels like as the raids get easier, we are getting less and less of that time together. And that is bad for me personally. I know that many of you will say, well, just go into Mythic, and we'll try, but our raid doesn't really have a reliable fixed number. We're always going to be under 20 players or over, and we don't really want to be benching people. We want to hang out. What I'm saying is there is nothing now in the game that fills the space, that serves the purpose that Heroic Raid used to do up until very recently. And if that's a problem for us, it is going to be a problem for lots of other people too. At the same time,
there's no spot for what Heroic Raid used to offer, and that it was like literally a season-long progression of content. That's true, but like I said, there's just other things to do now.
I don't want to make gear harder to get again. I love how it is right now. It just feels like at the mid-level, the game hasn't quite caught up to the new gear normal yet. Getting gear so soon, so soon feels great. But it's okay to make the content harder as a result, in my opinion. But even with the gear aside, I think the fights are getting easier anyway. There is, for example, a complete lack of mechanics in this raid where one person dicking up can wipe the entire raid. The kind of thing that we used to have loads of, and I know everyone hated those mechanics. But I don't know, man, progression felt better when we had them, in my opinion. Like, it's hard to imagine a fight that needs the kind of communication and coordination that Mechatalk in Dazara Lore did. It's hard to imagine heroic Mechatalk existing in a heroic War Within raid. So it's not just that we're gearing quicker, it is that some of the fights...
I mean, even the Dreadlords from Sepulchre of the first ones. You guys remember all the communication that was required with that? Like, who has the wings? You had to download, like, 10-week auras to get that fight done. Communication required in Halandris. That raid had a lot of fucking difficult bosses. And he's right in that, like, I can't really name a mechanic right now going on in the current raid, but I can literally have a completed nightmare of a Halandris fight from start to finish. I knew exactly how that fight worked, because we did it so many times. Same with Anduin. I can walk through that fight in my sleep. But to tell you right now that I remember all the mechanics from the current raid, I don't. I mean, it's still a little bit newer, but I probably won't even when we finish it, because it's just a bit easier to get through.
This level are asking less of us too. Maybe that balance can be tweaked a bit when it comes to fight complexity. I know that probably...
That's right about when I found your stream, Halandris.
So I'd genuinely love to hear your opinions in the comments below. Have you noticed that the game is becoming easier? What's the reason for that, in your opinion? Is it a bad thing? This is going to rely so much on like personal vibes. It's almost impossible, I think, for each certain type of player to see past their own experience. What a world first raider considers to be wrong with difficulty might be completely different from what a standard cutting edge raider sees as the issue, which might be completely different to what an ahead of the curve guild thinks is wrong, which might be completely different from what the others, like 60% of the entire player base, think is wrong. So I legitimately look forward to hearing your opinion on this, and thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all our work happen. And patrons, seriously, thank you. Because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evertel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Artemirs. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evertel. Until next time, cheerio.
Yeah, dude, you barely remember to come to stream. That's not true. I'm always fucking on time. It's just, I have a newborn, so that shit sometimes makes me a little bit late. Downvote it in 3, 2, 1. No, I upvoted it. It's a good video, and a lot of good points made. Again, the raid overall is not easy. Gallywix is easy, and I agree, Gallywix's final phase especially could have been more exciting. It's not an exciting fight. Even Gallywix's cinematic is anticlimactic. He gets... a spoiler, he gets crushed by his mech suit because he has a literal pussified rage after we beat him. I mean, it's nothing great about that, but we've seen what overly difficult raids look like. We've seen what easier raids look like, and I would say the game overall is leaning towards the easier side because that's what the majority of players want. It's a seasonal game. People want to get gear. People want to progress, and at the end of the day, I think more people are happy with how the game is now rather than how Season 1 was of Mythic Plus. So, good video from Taliesin.